take you home.
Hello and welcome to the Help My Unbelief podcast, the number one Christian podcast designed for the unbeliever. What's up, dude?
Hey, how you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great. As you know, like, we're completely honest with everybody, and so we're just going to be completely honest. We flubbed, and we're having to shoot this show again. We normally shoot on Wednesdays, and it is a Saturday night where I could be watching WrestleMania at home in my bed, and here we are shooting episode 19 of the Help My Unbelief podcast. What do you have to say about that?
Well, actually, I'm shocked that you're a wrestling fan.
Are you really?
I was a wrestling fan for I guess I met.
Who was your favorite wrestler?
Up until I met
Andre
Garcia.
the Giant, huh? Andre the Giant, huh?
Yeah, I looked up to him.
Yeah, I bet you did. That's funny.
I've actually met him.
Have you really?
Yeah. I
Probably one of the most iconic wrestlers of all time.
I guess I started watching it on TV when I was a kid, but I started going to the shows when I was like 17, 18 years old.
Really?
Yeah, Mid-South Wrestling and all that stuff.
Wow, dude. I watched it with my grandmother. Me and my grandma would be watching it together, and they would like backhand each other in the chest and stuff, and my grandma would go, "That's not very nice."
Well, believe it or not, my great-grandmother and great-grandfather actually went to the fairgrounds to watch them.
Really?
Yeah, that's how long wrestling was in my family.
That's awesome.
When I met Garcia, it's another one of those things that just faded away.
Yeah.
I really don't find a lot of enjoyment in it now. It's too much show. Back then, there were some good deals.
That's why I like it now, because like everything we do is so real and stuff like that. I like a little bit of that, just that element of fakeness to it. And it's like it's not like crazy dirty and stuff like that. So like we watched that show Love is Blind, and I'm like, I start watching that and I'm like, I don't think we should be watching this, man. Like,
oh yeah.
It makes you feel different, you know? But wrestling doesn't make me feel that way. It's fantasy. You know what I mean?
Found out that The Undertaker has given his life to the Lord.
Yeah.
He is now a Christian.
He's a Christian, man.
And he's going around testifying.
A lot of those guys
I think we ought to have him on the show.
He talked about Christ in his Hall of Fame.
Yes.
Hall of Fame speech, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think he'd sit there with his eyes all up the whole time whenever he's sitting there doing
No,
our
I
show?
actually saw a clip of it. It was pretty good.
I've been daydreaming the last couple of days
I don't know why you do that.
Whenever Phil Wickham's here, to see if we can get him to because on our show, we could have someone like that on and just have them take the call with us.
Yeah, that's true.
So kind of like Pastor Gary's going to do.
Yeah.
But I think that'd be cool. Phil Wickham sit in and take a call with us.
That'd be real cool.
He'd probably he seems like that like upbeat Christian. He'd come in here and it's like, we've got our spiritual cigars hanging out of our mouth and stuff like that. No. He'd be like, whoa, am I in the ghetto of Christianity here?
Have you already got your ticket for the Phil Wickham?
No, we'll probably be serving in some.
Yeah, you better get into it.
We serve, and I'm sure they'll ask us to serve, and we'll do it. So.
Well, I usually serve, but Darcy doesn't. So.
Sign-ups are after the first serving is going to be.
You need to get that mic.
Yeah.
Sign-ups are going to be after Easter weekend. They're going to go up so you can volunteer.
Okay.
Oh, I have a goal, and I'm going to start.
I wouldn't mind just sitting and watching it.
I'm going to start doing it now because this Matt guy that listens to every show, his name's Matt G. He messaged me privately. He was talking about how much he loves the show. By the way, if you guys love the show, I'm getting more and more direct messages of you guys saying how much you love the show. If you love the show, what would help us, a free way of helping us out so much, is to go leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Really, Apple would be the best place. I mean, most of you guys listen to the show on Apple Podcasts. I mean, over like 80% of our listeners listen to it on Apple. But go leave us a 5-star review and just a quick little message about what you like the show. But anyway, a goal of mine, but we would appreciate that so much. Please go do that, or leave us a comment wherever you're watching it at and stuff like that. So yeah, I would really enjoy that if you guys would do that. But one of my goals for next year, and I talked to Matt about it. He's like, man, I live in Tennessee. I would love to come down and meet you guys one of these days. And I'm like, you know what? It's a year from now. I can start promoting this. but I want to pack this. I want to pack this whole church for the men's conference next year. Impact Men's Conference.
That'd be awesome.
I mean, I want to pack it with unbelievers. I want to pack it with believers.
Well,
just
we also have another one coming up in August.
here.
Mm-hmm.
What's it called?
The
Oh, I didn't know
It's a huge deal on meat.
Oh,
it's
cool.
usually the men's steak dinner, but this year we have decided to do all kinds of meat instead of.
Is it just one day?
Yeah, I think so.
If people are going to travel all across the world,
yeah.
2 days. That's why I'm doing that impact.
Well, we could just start a revival.
Yeah.
You know, and have everybody here for
10 days. Yeah.
10, 12.
Let's
15.
do it. Let's do it.
I pray for a revival all the time.
Did I ever tell you that Tyson? He sent me. He gave me a cross from the Asbury Revival. It's in my front yard. You know that cross?
Oh
that's in my front yard?
I saw that. Yeah,
that's from the Asbury Revival, dude. How cool is that?
One of the things I was going to do today was set up my 3 crosses for Easter.
Really?
Yeah, I just didn't get to that today.
Nice.
Hey, I know you haven't noticed. I do want to say it because I know you can't see it, but this is my last camouflage visor that I have at this time.
I did notice you're wearing the same clothes as the other day.
Well, I wanted to be as authentic as possible
Dude,
because I know
cool.
I took notes and I know what I wear.
You know, things like this are going to happen, and I know I sounded like I was complaining in the beginning. Yeah, I'm very grateful that I get to do this, man. I'm very grateful that I get to do this show, and the fact that my entire team, well, besides Mark's, and so if you, I know a lot of you guys are starting to message me and tell me how much you love Mark.
Yeah.
Mark's in Little Rock.
Unfortunately, he cannot be here. He is on assignment.
He was here at the first recording, and then we dropped the ball, and now he's on assignment in Little Rock.
And he had mentioned that after May becomes the hurricane season, when the hurricane season hits, there's going to be a lot of times that he's off on assignment.
Yeah. Yeah. So Mark's not going to be here every week, but maybe someday we'll be able to afford him to where we can get him all. We'll just have him all the time at our beck and call, right?
Do you want to share the good news with them, or do you still want to hold off?
Share the good news of what? The 501?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know what?
Yeah, we might as well. Yeah, so we have we met with our CPA. We are starting a 501c3. The Help My Unbelief ministry is going to be an actual real life
thing.
Legal ministry. And we are accepting donations for it. We need to come up with $3,000 to start it. That's insane. But really $1,500 to start with is the big number because we have to have half up front and then half when they get done. So $1,500 to get us started.
I personally would like to walk in, slap it down, and say, look, we're serious. We need to get this crap done.
Yeah, let's get it done.
That's what I want to do.
Because it's going to take 6 months, but they've allowed us. So,
but all it would take is 30 people.
Yeah,
sending $100, and we already did several.
Yeah, and so what we're doing is our CPA is allowing us to operate as a 501c3 right now, to where we can actually offer the tax benefits and everything like that right now. So we would just need your name and stuff like that. I am over this weekend. I'm setting up a Cash App and all that stuff that's dedicated directly for our ministry only. So I don't have that available right now for you, but reach out to me via email or DMs, Discord, wherever to get that information, and I will get that information to you. And we'll go from there.
Hey, and it's almost Easter. I just want to say that if you're anywhere in the Oklahoma City area, the Yukon, we have our egg hunt, and it's like 80,000 Easter eggs, okay? And it'll be at the Yukon High School down there on the practice field. That's what we do every year, and it's got bounce houses. And, I mean, it is a big deal. And then after that, we go to El Reno and do it for the afternoon. But more importantly, listen, we get told every time that during this time, during Christmas and during Easter, those are the 2 times of the year that somebody will come to church if you invite them. That's all they need is you inviting them to church. So whether you go to church here at Discovery or any other place, man, reach out and invite somebody. Take somebody to church with you.
Or go to church.
Yeah.
I know a lot of you guys don't go to church. Go to church.
Yeah,
or
watch
our church online with us. We would love that. So anyway, we're going to get to our guest today. Her name is Indy. She's a friend of the Bible study. She doesn't listen to all the shows, although she should, right? Because the show's great.
I think she's going to start.
She has to, right?
Yeah.
I
mean, she's in the Bible study every day.
She is a friend of the Bible study. Indy is a former witch, and she a practice in the occult, and she has got a crazy history. I know she is a Christian now, but I know I normally interview people that are only unbelievers right now. But in special occasions, we are going to interview people who used to be in that, and now they're not. And for specific reasons, we're going to do that. But I figured you guys would want to hear her story. She is an amazing woman of God now, but her history was not of that. And so I wanted you guys to hear her story. So let's get to her, Indy.
Hello?
There she is.
Hello.
Let's try this again, sis, huh?
Take two. Do it.
There you go. Take two. Good to hear you again, Indy.
Good to hear you, Larry. You wearing the visor?
Of course.
Yeah.
Just not the kilt.
I am technically in the same exact outfit I had on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Oh, very nice.
The only thing different is the mint in my mouth. It's fresh.
I would hope so, dude.
Yeah.
Good grief,
Hey,
dude.
if I could keep one in my mouth for 3 days, that'd be great.
Really? You would do that, nasty.
Nasty? No, man. I just like to have fresh breath.
Yeah. Well, you know how I am, Indy. I'm honest with everything, so I've already told the audience, be like, hey, like we recorded the show already, and we're gonna have to do it again. I think my intro of you was nicer this time. Like it was more in depth about what I think of you and stuff like that. So,
Aww.
well, I mean about your history and stuff like that. Because
I was like, I can't wait to hear it.
oh, I did say something sweet at the end of last one. I'm gonna have to try to match that somehow, but I forgot what I did. You know what? I'm just gonna speak from the heart, like always, and we'll just go from there. So. But yeah, I wanted to get to it because this time we only did about an 11-minute intro. So I just wanted to get straight and do your story because I know there's a lot to dig into, and I think people could benefit a lot from your story. So I want to go over your history. You are a former witch, right? And you practice in the cult, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so did you grow up this way or how did you start practicing in this?
Yeah. So I kind of grew up like a Catholic witch, and my family, all identified Catholic, and I was baptized in the Catholic Church and kind of went through the steps and process, but we never read the Bible, and we only really went to church on kind of the mandated holidays. So I think we had the title, but didn't really operate under any, deep religious or devout perspective. But the women on the side of my family, so the first about 5 or 6 years of my life, we lived in my grandmother's house with her. And so my grandmother practiced witchcraft, and my mother practiced witchcraft. And so from a really, really, my earliest memories were my grandma showing me all the crystals and explaining to me their energies and how to cleanse them in the moonlight.
So it was normal to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And, looking back too, we never denied God or anything, but it's interesting to me now when I think about it, because my grandmother always told me, pray to your angels for guidance, and you can talk to your angels instead of praying to Jesus or directly to God, which is sort of in par. And I don't want to offend any Catholics, but it wasn't weird, and it didn't deviate from what.
Oh yeah, it's normal.
Catholic Church preaches.
Yeah, it's normal for Catholics to pray to angels, right? Which there's not anything in the Bible to say that you couldn't pray to angels. Definitely, there's stuff in the Bible that says you shouldn't worship them, right? But it would to me, it would be common sense that it's not okay to pray to angels. Why would you need to, right?
100%. And that's where, like, kind of, now I know the dangers of it, looking back and after everything.
What's dangerous about it?
Through. So the main thing is and I think the Bible, the reason they make it clear is like you have one God, and, Jesus is the way, the truth, and the light, and you go directly to the source. You don't need. That's why Jesus came down for us. Is he ripped open the veil? He is the direct source. The angels, that when you pray to angels, you have really no idea what you're praying to, and if it's not coming directly from the source, then it's not going to be like positive. It's not of God, if that makes sense.
While I was sitting here waiting on them to get everything set up, I was looking through my Bible. I'm in 1 John 4, and verse 1 says, "Dear friends, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are from God, because many false prophets have gone out into the world. This is how you can recognize the Spirit of God. Every spirit that acknowledges that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is from God. But every spirit that does not acknowledge Jesus is not from God. This is the spirit of the Antichrist, which you have heard is coming, and even now is already in the world."
You remember a couple of weeks ago when I told Nero to ask his spirit guides who the Son of God is?
Mm-hmm.
That's biblical, and I didn't know it.
Yeah, totally biblical. Yeah.
That's incredible, yeah.
Yeah, Indy, I told Nero, which you know Nero, he's in our Bible study. He's probably listening to this. Yeah. Nero, I'm being nice. I'm just repeating what we said. Chill, bro. I'm kidding. I said, I told him to test. He said he has spirit guides that he communicates with. And I told him the next time he talks to him to ask them who Jesus Christ is.
Yeah, I remember you asking that. Now,
that's what I thought of. Yeah,
that's what when I was reading a while ago, I was like, oh,
yeah,
right here.
So literally, what that says is when you ask those spirits, they have to respond to you. If they acknowledge that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh and has risen from the dead, then it is of God. If they don't acknowledge that, then they're not of God.
Mm.
I think I thought is incredible, and I think one important thing to that people should know is that specifically the acknowledging that Jesus came in the flesh, died for our sins, and is our Savior, because so many darker energies, and we even read it in the Bible, they recognize Jesus, they cry out to Jesus, but to go to the extent of acknowledging exactly who he is, they won't do that. When
we actually take a look at all the spirits, the bad spirits, good spirits, whichever, they were all, I'm wondering how long that they were actually with Jesus.
Say that again.
Okay. The Word was with God, John 1:1. Okay. God was the Word. Word was with God, right? And then, then in 14 it says, "And the Word was made flesh and walked among us."
Uh-huh.
Okay, so that's Jesus. So yeah. Jesus was, because he's also is God. He was with God. He is the Word, and all the angels was created by God and Jesus, right?
Yeah. Right.
Okay. Now think this. Then 1/3 of them fell. Right?
Yeah.
They were angels. They knew Jesus. They knew Jesus and chose to follow Satan.
Exactly.
Or I'm sorry, Lucifer. So that we can. I had some
don't
people
say,
dissing me
don't
on
say,
that one.
Don't say Lucifer.
All right, yeah, Lucifer.
Don't say Lucifer.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, he fell. All right.
Yeah.
So they knew Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Think that through.
Well, they were probably deceived too, right?
Oh yeah, they definitely were.
I was just thinking about that this morning.
That's I was going into pissed. They don't have a choice. We have a choice.
Yeah.
They don't have a choice.
I think Satan. No, I was thinking about this morning too. I think Satan had a choice too. Like God is so good, and he knew what Satan wanted, and he's only giving Satan what he wanted. Satan wanted to be king and exalted and stuff like this, and he wanted, and he's like, okay, well, that can't happen. You can't dethrone God, right? So he just cast him to the earth and I'll give you your free will to do that. So he gave Satan free will to do. I mean, maybe he has less rules and stuff. I don't know. I'm just I'm clapping off the butt right now. Dude.
Yeah, but I mean,
I believe
my head went down a rabbit hole.
I believe Satan. Here's what I'll say. I believe God's good, and I believe Satan had a choice.
Well, I believe that Satan was created so that we would have a choice.
Oh, you believe Satan didn't have a choice?
I believe that pride was found in him.
Indy, what do you believe?
Where did the pride come from?
I think I'm with you. Where I do believe that God also gave the angels a sense of free will, and Lucifer made his choice. I think the reason God judges the angels so much more harshly, and I think has so much mercy and grace for us, it's because I feel the angels are probably have the same concept of I don't think they're bound. These spirits aren't bound to time and space like we are. And so if they understand more clearly consequences to actions,
Ooh.
And so where we are more lost and we're more confused, like, lambs to a slaughter pretty much, the angels, they had more knowledge. So it was like the older sibling, like, you should have known better.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Well, they're God's day one homies too. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Day one. Like, I don't know. Like for example, if you screwed me over or she screwed me over, which one would be worse? I love you both quite a bit, right? So it's not about the amount of love, right?
That's your wife,
but that's my day one homie.
You love her more.
Yeah.
Nobody could even consider that to be different.
Yeah, that's a bad example.
But what catches my attention is the Trinity of God. Okay, and then he had 3 archangels: Gideon, Michael, Lucifer. And Lucifer took 1/3. There it is again. 1/3 of the angels with him.
Did you say Gideon?
Gideon, Michael.
Is it
Lucifer.
Gabriel?
Ah, you're right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I knew something.
Good catch. Good catch. Yes, that's Gabriel. Yeah.
Okay, that's crazy, man. Okay, let's move on. We're already we're chipping into Indy's time here, but
I love you talking.
We're gonna get through. We're gonna get through her story one way or the other.
Indy would go through anything with us. So
yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying.
That's a good thing.
I know. That's what I was like. If this was anybody else besides Indy, like, we wouldn't have had an episode this week, or me and you would have just came up here and been like, "Hey, we're stupid. And let's talk for 2 hours."
Hey, okay, let's kind of go back. I'm going over my notes that I wrote on Wednesday. You were formerly with the occult. Voodoo, which you have not mentioned, is one of the things that you were talking about. You were actually in a coven with the Wicca and Satanism, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Although I don't know. I never identified as like a Satanist, but also I don't think Satan needs you to acknowledge him or really worship him for him to get his job done. So I think I always had an acknowledgement that Satan's bad, and I had this delusion that I'm only working with the light,
All right. Okay. Well, the part that people don't understand is Satan is not a little red dude. I mean, a big red dude with a tail and horns, right?
Right.
He was the angel of light. He was absolutely beautiful. He had instruments all through him. I mean, you look up the description of him, it just blows your mind.
You know that vision I told you about Satan with he's here with the 666, that vision? I'm not going to say it on here, but I've saw a couple of old videos of someone recently, one of which today, and I went, whoa, that looks like my vision.
Really?
Yeah. I ain't saying it on here.
Yeah.
I ain't saying it on here. Our show's gotten way too popular for me to say it on here. No, not saying it.
All right. Well, let's go back to Indy.
All right.
So you were a Roman Catholic from birth, yet your mom and your grandma practiced witchcraft at home, and your church life wasn't reading the Bible at home. You were a CEO, which is a Christmas and Easter only Christian.
That was. I never heard that, but yes.
Okay.
That was it.
Yeah, I'm old enough to come up with some stuff, huh?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I've caught us up to where we are. All right.
Yeah.
And
So,
I'm going to let you take it from there. Okay.
yeah, I think just at the earliest of ages, and I think I mentioned this part, and I won't get into like gory details or anything, but just it is really goes along with my whole testimony, and I just find I've noticed it's really, really common amongst people. I think who are really gifted and are created by God to do a wonderful purpose for His kingdom, is that like the enemy knows this and he attacks it, and so at a really young age, while all of this kind of witchcrafty sort of stuff is going on with like crystals and praying to angels, I became I experienced a lot of like sexual abuse from a close friend of the family, that there was like violence, and it was, ongoing for several years, and that secrecy and a lot of torment through it. And so I think that's when I would, especially I think because of that trauma, I would cry out to God and angels even as a child. And I do know throughout several of those incidences, I saw like angels of light around me during the experiences. And I kind of I think, in psychology, they call it disassociation, but he was like, they kind of comforted me, like took me away for while it was happening. And because that gave me like a real close connection to those experiences with a different spiritual realm, that I was able to be protected from a lot of that. And so from an early age, I just had I would see, like I had experiences with angels, and good
so
and bad ones.
You saw both. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And the bad ones, as a kid, you just think like a kid's having nightmares, but I had like the night terrors as a child, where it seemed like I'm awake and I'm screaming and freaking out, and, the parents like, wake up, wake up. But really they were, a lot of times now that I can look back on it, they really were demonic attack.
Oh,
let me back you up just a tad bit, because I want to verify something. You mentioned your sexual abuse. Mm-hmm. Because of the interviews that we've done, that cuts through my heart like you won't believe. But what I want to say is, was that ritualistic abuse, or was it just, like somebody being a predator kind of thing? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It wasn't like the person abusing me wasn't like tied to any like type specific occult practices. So it wasn't kind of like, I did experience the ritualistic type in my more adult years, but this one, it had like all of the characteristics of just ongoing perpetration. So the secrecy, if you tell anybody, I'll kill your family, that power control, like this person's all powerful, it takes away. It was just a total stripping of power at a really young age.
Oh man.
Do you think that has to do with some sort of demonic control?
1,000,000%. I really think that's the enemy's plan. I think I mentioned in the first recording that as a career professional, I have a lot of background in being trauma informed, and with my spiritual knowledge, I really think that trauma is kind of that first in where Satan can attack. And I think we see that regularly. I think he operates and kind of gets in with initial trauma. And we just kind of keep repeating it.
Do you think that the reason that they use that so much is just the taking away your control?
For me, in my personal experience, and I really do, I think whether it's ritualistic or any form, just even like a date rape experience, it's always about power and control, and taking away that sense of power. So your natural response is, I'm going to get my power back. And that makes God in general a really scary thing, because what do we do as Christians? We're obedient. We submit. Yeah.
Well, that's what's crazy, man. I agree with what you're saying. Is like Satan's trying to cut these people off at the pass because they've got strong purposes, and they're just trying to defeat you when you're a baby. That way, when you grow up, you want. I mean, look at Joyce Meyer. I know some people don't.
No.
Some people don't agree with Joyce Meyer, but she was abused by her own dad, dude, for all the years, and then her mom allowed it. There was a lot of hurdles she had to go over to do what she's doing today. Yeah. Do I agree with all of her teaching? Well, I mean, I don't think I mean, like, her probably issue of salvation is a little loose for me. You know what I mean? But other than that, like, she's wonderful, man. She's a strong, independent woman. And I would want my daughters or someone going through trauma. That's a good example of how you should be, or even Indy now. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And I'm going to ask you, because I do know Joyce Meyer's story. That is my wife's absolute favorite to listen to. Indy, have you forgiven those that created that much problem for you?
Only in like the last, I'd say, 2 years. I think I've been able to fully
let it
forgive.
Go.
And yeah, well, it's hard to say, because I think that's where people have a real misconception about what forgiveness actually is. And it doesn't, I still get really angry, and I'll read Old Testament and our wrathful God, and I'm like, vengeance is the Lord's. All that stuff. Like, I trust, I have faith that their day is coming and God's going to handle them the way they need to be handled. And it's not in my hands.
I get pumped about some people too. Like, I'm like, you get that. Like, you get that someday that you're going to have to answer for this, bro. I hope you don't.
It doesn't keep them from the, I lost my word. The consequences. It doesn't keep them from the consequences of what they have to go through. I mean, I truthfully think that. But the most important thing, Matthew tells us in chapter 6, verse 14, for if you forgive men when they sin against you, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive men their sins, your Father will not forgive your sins. So it's extremely important with Indy that she does come to that place where she does forgive.
Yeah.
And understanding that God's going to punish that person.
Yeah.
And it's not up to her to seek that revenge.
Yeah.
I think the only way, and it's not my own forgiveness truly, is like, you hear this, people like to say this, like, only God can forgive you. And that's not true. He does call us to forgive. And that verse, actually, when I read it, I mean, the word is a sword and it pierces you. And that one hurt. It hit me, like, when I was in a place of unforgiveness. And so I started watching all of these podcasts and working in therapy, like how to achieve forgiveness and what does that mean? And ultimately, I think the only way I arrived at a place where I feel like I'm in true forgiveness doesn't mean I don't still like, like, if they don't repent, I know that the word is true. And I know that God is a just God, and I'm his daughter. I'm his beloved little girl. But I also know that God wants them. And so praying for them, praying for your enemies was a practice that it started off as like, God deal with them, amen. It kind of grew from there. But I had to start somewhere.
But you have made strides.
Yeah. I
Way
remember
past that one. I love it.
I remember how sensitive of a subject this was, because I used to investigate things like this that Indy went through as a kid and stuff like that. And grown women was kind of rare for me to investigate, but I would. But I had an actual friend that came to me one day, and she was like, she she wouldn't tell me who did it, but she got abused at a party. And she didn't want to do it. She wanted to talk to me more of like as a Christian man rather than a detective. Right?
Yeah.
And it showed that she didn't want me to really do anything about it because she wouldn't tell me who did it. She wouldn't tell me. Mm-hmm. She's like, I'm afraid that you would act as a cop and go do it. So I'm just not even going to give you that opportunity. And I'm not even going to tell you who did it. And I started speaking to her as a Christian. This is the first time I ever was trying to counsel someone on what to do when you're sexually abused. And I brought up forgiveness to her. And I literally thought she was going to hit me over the head with the chair, dude. Literally, she was very upset with me, dude. And I was like, whoa. And it was only I don't know, 5 or 6 years later, she came and told me who did it and told me that she's really working on forgiving him. But he was dead. He died.
Even if he has died, the forgiveness is for her, not for them.
Yeah. Right.
And I have to say, I didn't say this the other day, but my mother was I'm actually sitting here looking at a picture of my mom that I use as a bookmark for my Bible. But my mom admitted later in her life to me, making me an older guy, that she had been abused as a kid.
Man, I bet that gave you some crazy.
She told me that at the same time that I found out that my daughter had been abused. So,
good grief, dude.
Yeah, well, I can't go there, but my mom brought it up to me because I'm an angry giant when I get way off. I'm an angry giant. And I don't have bounds, and my mom.
That's why I run.
My mom looked
You'll
at me.
Never catch me.
My mom looked at me and said, listen, let it go.
It's so hard.
You got to give
at first.
You got to give it to God, because those girls, I have 3 daughters. Those girls will never, it won't do them any good if you're in prison.
Yeah.
Because in all honesty, my mom knew me well enough to know that that's where I would go.
Yeah. It's funny too, when me and Angela, when Angela was my nanny, and Angela, I could tell she liked me. I could tell she had a crush on, however you want to say that. She had a crush on me, right? And she started to tell me that she liked me and stuff like that. And
okay, now I'm gonna correct something.
What?
Because the way you said that, it sounded like she was your nanny. She's not old enough to be your nanny.
No, I would actually put. No, this is the real thing. I used to actually put on diapers, and and I'd pay her to be my nanny.
He tells you it's time for his nap.
We called it nappy poo. I'm just kidding.
That's sick.
But anyway, she was my girl's nanny, right?
There you go.
But we had this deal too, where she'd come over and do my laundry, and if I mowed her lawn, and so she'd do that, and I'd cook her supper sometimes and stuff like that. We were pretty much married anyway. So and one night I told her, because I was kind of starting to entertain the idea in my head of being with her as well, because I really liked how she was and stuff like that. But I was kind of having to check boxes of the insecurity. Well, she had been sexually abused when she was a kid. And then also multiple members of her family. She'd been through one of the most horrific things I've ever heard, having to do with sexual abuse with her whole family, essentially. And I was sitting there thinking about that. And I was like, I asked her one night, it was a big insecurity of mine, because I'm an investigator. And that was like the most cases I worked. And then me, it's pretty obvious that I would never do something like that. And I asked her, I said, is the only reason why you want to be with me because you know I would never do anything like that to you or your family? And she said no, but I always wondered that with her, if that was the main reason, because she knew she'd be safe with me. And then later on I realized, I go, what's so wrong with that? If she feels safe with me, you know what I mean? What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
Who cares if that's the only reason? She feels safe with me. That's great.
Yeah.
So
I think it's such a huge testimony to you, but also her, Angela and her trust, because I think after everything that I had gone through with my husband now. And
you wrote off
the very
men.
beginning. Oh yeah. I went through.
Well, because
I went through it.
You're my age, and I think that blows my mind that you're just completely. You say you don't ever want to date again, or you've actually decided to never date again.
No. So I'm actually married now.
Oh, gotcha. But
it took forever, and it's kind of the whole long story, but it took a long time. And when we, in the very beginning of our relationship, when we first moved in together, because of my past and my history, which, I just felt like I kind of was like, I'm a walking liability. So he had to be on guard because of all the crazy kind of a little bit in my life. So he always like we have PUPs. We say it's a podcast. So we have conceal and carry permits and all of that. A lot of safety measures, cameras around the house and stuff, but he's he has to kind of be on alert a little bit more, feeling like the protector. And so he kept locking the bedroom door before we go to bed. And oh my gosh, it was like the first few nights of us living together, I stayed up all night and I was having a silent panic attack. Like, why is he locking the doors? He's going to kill me. He's trying to kill me. So, and then it's harder for me to get out because I can't unlock the doors. Like I couldn't.
So let's get into these stories because I want people to understand why you're paranoid. That's what I want to understand. So basically, okay. So your whole family practiced witchcraft essentially, right? And then I want to go over this story again. Tell me about the woman in the wall whenever you were a kid.
So it was right after we moved out of my grandma's house. My parents were young when they had us too. So my dad was like, bought his first house and we moved in, and it was like a ranch style home with a finished basement. So me and my sister's rooms were in the basement. And I think my mother was highly, incredibly abusive. Like when you think about, like a malignant narcissist, and you think, I never really understood demonology until I heard someone describe the Jezebel spirit. And I'm like, that was so much her, and kind of that's sort of a pattern spirit, I think, throughout my life. But this woman had I think she has legions. She's very highly influenced by dark presences. So I think with my initial trauma as a child, and then my sister was always like highly, highly favored in her eyes, looked more like her. My mom put my sister in beauty pageants when we were young, and my sister was getting ready to go to Disneyland for one of the pageants. And I remember I'm being left at home, and I'm like, why can't I go, Mom? And she's like, oh, honey, you're not pretty enough.
Whoa.
Oh, wow.
That was again, when it was really dark. And so I think with everything, the pattern of my childhood, I had this inner sense of I just wanted to feel special,
Yeah.
So and I'm also highly connected to the spiritual realm that I've been sort of encountering from my earliest memories. It's normal to me. It's not hard. It's just a normal thing to me. So my dad was a cop and went to a scene of an accident, and paramedics, he mentioned he has kids, and they're like, oh, take this home to your kids. And it was a stethoscope. So my dad brought us home a stethoscope for all of us to play with. And I don't know why, something was I grabbed it and I ran to my room and I put it against the wall. And I just started talking. I knew I was weird because it was internally, I kind of already knew she'd been there, but now I'm like, I can talk to her. So I started talking to this, well, she's a demon, but this female spirit in my wall. And audibly, I could hear her, through the stethoscope, loud and clear. And I didn't have some big visual, but it's almost when you kind of daydream, or that's sort of what my visions are like.
Mine too. That's crazy.
Yeah. I could visualize her. I knew everything that she looked like, and she's this beautiful, kind of older lady with gorgeous long silver hair and just the brightest blue eyes. And she just made me feel so, so special, really special. Listen to all my problems. I would I became very connected to her, and I just felt this total love from her. And my parents at first were like, oh, she has a big imagination, and I would just write it off like, oh, it's an imaginary friend and whatever. But it became like I'd be at school and I want to go home. I wanted to talk to her. I didn't want to play with my friends or go outside. I just wanted to be in the room talking to her. And it started freaking my parents out a little bit more and more, especially when we started having a little bit more like poltergeist activity around the house about that time. And I think I mentioned last time about like disembodied voices that sounded exactly like my dad worked graveyards. So, you know, we slept in the basement. So he swore he would hear giggling. He'd hear us laughing and playing in the basement, and he'd come running downstairs and pick open our doors, flip on the lights. What are you doing awake? What are you doing up? We were passed out, but he thought we had faked it, ran to our room. So weird kind of stuff started happening around the house. And it was mostly like footsteps and the disembodied voices. And finally, like, I started seeing like her coming to school, and I can hear her a little more outside of the wall, and she started talking to me more at school too, and she started kind of being with me everywhere I went, but I can hear her loudest, or she was closest to the wall in my room. So eventually
you're talking about an actual physical voice, not one just in your head, right?
So I audibly heard her, like it sounded like out loud coming at me about twice, but otherwise it was in my head.
Yeah, what I'm wanting to say is, I mean, like her dad heard it. So it's,
yeah.
you know, I mean, that's an audible voice that they could hear.
Well, they probably spirits can only it sounds like they have a certain amount of energy they can use, and like to actually project an audible voice would take a tremendous amount of energy for them, it sounds like.
And then it followed her to school. I mean, that just freaks, you know, I mean, not freaks me out.
But didn't you say it started when did it started to take a turn for the worse, didn't it? Like where this woman, you didn't feel love from this woman anymore.
No, she started terrifying me. So she listened to me. But she also told me things. And this was when my dad, I mentioned last time, he got like the priest in the house, and he was, you know, they took away the stethoscope, and they were like serious. They're like, stop talking to the wall. Like they got real creeped out by it, because she would tell me things that, about my family, about my other people. So this is elementary school, and I got picked on a ton, and with my arch nemesis, Stephanie, at school. And so she would whisper things to me, like about, you know, about Stephanie, like, her dad doesn't love her, and weird, creepy things like that. And one time we were out in the playground, and Stephanie was swinging upside down on the monkey bars. And this is when I'm like, visually, I'm kind of starting to see her, like, and it still felt like like I kept wondering, like, is this, I just thought I had a vivid imagination, but I saw her, and now she's starting to look uglier to me. Like the more nasty things she's telling me about other people, like her features started changing, and I'm starting to see her look like less pretty. Her eyes are less bright. Her hair's more stringy. But I'm in the playground. Stephanie's swinging upside down, and she tells me I'm gonna push her, and I was like, no, like I didn't like Stephanie, but I'm like, I have a heart. I was like, no, don't do that. That's mean. And I'm not kidding you. I saw her push Stephanie, and Stephanie fell on the ground. She cracked her head up and was bleeding. She had to go to the nurse's office, and that freaked me out, like really freaked me out. And then again, my mom was like not the best role model, but my parents, with, you know, I think the demonic energy sort of surrounding her, it did not make for a healthy home life between my parents either. And so, I mean, my dad being a cop would have to call the cops to get a formal escort out of the home at times, because she was so volatile.
Cop calling the cop.
Yeah, like
that's
talk
insane.
about humiliating. Yeah, he was humiliated.
Man, okay. So I want to get to All right, now I want to get to where you're a little older, because we're at an hour, and I want to give you plenty of time to talk about what we missed last time.
So I can ask this question and kind of lead you there, okay?
Okay.
All right. You come on, I have it right here. All right, you were living in a house, but you're going to church, Catholic church. You weren't really participating by reading the Bible, but you were participating in witchcraft and all of that kind of stuff. So, in your opinion, what actually drove you to Jesus?
It happened in middle school. I had my best friend growing up. Her mother was highly Christian, and being kind of like a neglected little child, she really took me in and took me to church. And so I got like fired up for Jesus right around middle school. And that lasted through me getting to college. I'd escape my household kind of drama through running, like you, Zach. And that's when I started, like, God would like talk to me. I would really pray to God kind of throughout college or middle school through high school. So I got I feel like I truly was saved in that time and walking with the Lord. And it was when I got a scholarship for cross country and track to my college. So when I got to college, I had a horrible injury really right before the first meet started and couldn't run anymore, lost my scholarship. And that's what I got mad at God. Like, my life has already been so awful. This was all I had and it's gone. Through everything I've been through, which, kind of brushed over there was so much like trauma in my childhood that I just got mad. And so again, with the sexual abuse, where it's like, you feel this urge to take your power back. And I was tired of submitting to God. I'm like, I'm taking my power back. Like, this isn't working. What you're doing for me is not working. So I'm going to do it myself. And that's when I started getting more heavily back into like the heavy occult practices. And I tried to get my power back. I was never a drinker, and actually my trauma led me to like asexual. Like, I would tape down my breasts. Like, I didn't want to be like a sexual entity, period. But by the time I'm in college now, I'm like, lost my scholarship. I'm like, fine. Like, I'm always abused anyway. So now I'm just going to do it my way. And so I'll use them back. So I got a job as a bartender, and my uniform itself did not attract like like, if a bar crowd's not bad enough, like my uniform was a black mini skirt and a tank top, right? So it's not going to attract the right population of
right
dating pool. So when I'm working at this bar, like, this is when, obviously my life's starting to unravel a little bit. And I've always struggled. Like, I think when the enemy attacks, like, some people, it's heavily through addiction or substances. Like, my vice has always been like, just kill yourself, And so I was also very much kind of in that mind state while I'm working the bar. Like, it doesn't matter anyways, because it's in my hands and I don't plan on being here that long. So, like, if all else fails, I'm just going to jump ship. So I was just reckless, And it's right in this moment that this guy walks into the bar, and he's on parole. He's fresh out of prison. And I'm a hot mess, and his story, like, he started talking to me, and, he saw my moon rings and this and that. And he's like, "Oh, you're a witch, huh?" And I'm like, "Maybe." And he's like, "Well, I'm a warlock," and starts telling me about how the women in his family, like, taught him witchcraft and stuff, and his story and some of his trauma as a child too. And I just obviously felt like this connection, like, oh, you're like me, like these two lost souls. And it ended up being, this is why, like, the most horrific experience of my life, and what led me to the coven. So, right off the bat, he wanted to marry me and get me pregnant, and it was just this fast moving. And even in my head, I'm like, well, buddy, like, I wasn't that into it, but I'm kind of like, whatever, I'm going along with this because I'm still thinking I'm going to jump ship. So it's only like 2 weeks of us really hanging out that he wants to introduce me to his mom. And so I'm coming off of work and I'm kind of like, I don't want your mom to think I'm a hooker. Like, let me change. And he's like, no, she won't care. So I meet his mom, and she is a beautiful woman and just has this like aura about her of power. And she's been a single mom her whole life, and she's this powerful, mighty feminist woman. And I just like respected that because power is what I felt I'd always been missing in my life. And
yep.
It was weird. I wouldn't say I was ever in a cult, but when I researched like cult and psychology, I'm like, that's what that felt like, where it's like this initiation. So she immediately, day one, like loved me, called me beautiful, she bought me everything, like a lot of financial manipulation and taking me on these, I'm telling a month into this, like she's taking me like, we're going to Vegas, the girls trip, like not with her son or anything, just her and me. And then her, like she called her surrogate daughter, and kind of started like later became my best friend and was in the coven. So I had this weird initiation process, right?
Yeah. You guys practice witchcraft together and all that stuff?
Yeah.
So it was a whole it was like a whole family, right? Like did it grow over time?
So the coven itself, like stayed like four women, and it was all of them I met through the family. So like one of them was practically the other daughter of like, the psychological sister of my ex. And ironically, my ex-sister-in-law, who I became very close with, so she was a born-again Christian. And when I first met her, she had warned me. She's like, I escaped my family, like my grandmother and my mom, like they talk to demons and, they're going to say it's white light and it's this and that. And she's like, it ruined my life. Like, you don't understand. And I really thought, I'm like, you should maybe get back on your mental health medication. Like you might be taking this Jesus thing a little far, because she was so on fire for Christ that I kind of thought like.
She was trying to warn you.
This is confused. Exactly. Yeah, she really was. And she was. But the stuff she would say, and even as spiritual as I was, I kept telling myself, like, no, because they don't work with dark energy. But she had told me, she's like, my grandma's spying on me. She separated from her mom and her grandmother because of the witchcraft. And of course, she started experiencing a lot of extra demonic attacks afterwards. And so she would call me and be like, my mom sent a vulture to my house, like freaking out, like they're spying on me. And I'm like, girl, like you should talk to somebody.
Oh, dude, I watched
really questioning.
I watched a video with an interview with Pink. You know Pink, the singer, the famous singer.
I believe I've heard.
So she practices some form of like Hinduism or something like that. She believes in reincarnation, and she was talking about how her dad wanted to come back as like a bird or something like that. And said she was sitting there doing some sort of like palpitation meditation where she was like touching herself on the face, and she heard a big crash in her living room, and a giant bird had landed inside of her house. And she's like, it was my dad or whatever. But I've noticed a correlation with people talking about birds that practice other religions besides Christianity, these crows, these ravens and stuff like that. And then man, it's just kind of shocking hear this. Like the demonic realm seems to use birds like that, Yeah,
they definitely do. And I wonder, I've thought about that too, like correlations between like the angels, or is it their flight, or do they have some like vision? But there's always a strong correlation between
birds. Yeah.
I think like birds. Yeah.
I thought that was weird that she said that you said that her mom sent her a bird or whatever. And I'm like, man, that's like, it seems like it's attached to some sort of demonic energy. Birds are.
Yeah. I think that's another thing, like really testing the spirit. Cause obviously doves have a really holy significance, right? But then how often do you hear in the Bible the unclean birds?
So, okay. So you're practicing witchcraft with these people, right? Give me one experience where you're practicing witchcraft with them, where you're like, oh, this isn't good. I really need to think about getting out of this. Where did it kind of start? Where you may have been practicing or something, and you felt something just dark, and you're like, I don't think this is what I thought it was.
Okay, so I didn't tell you guys this time, but I mentioned it. So we went on this girls trip, the Coven, right? And my mother-in-law at the time's pretty, she's the mother, like Coven mother. She's the head, the orchestrator, and she's the one who kind of always like led the spells and things like that. And so we would go, by now, her own daughter, who's she cut me out at this point too. She just didn't trust me, even though I kept like, no, it's fine, it's good, it's angelic. She's like, no. So she cut me, and it broke my heart because I loved her. Like, she's such a good friend to me, but she had a big, ugly falling out with her mom. So it's been 4 years of them not talking, and or even seeing each other, like, period. And my ex-mother-in-law hated her husband, and she blamed her husband because that's how Jesse, my sister-in-law, became Christian, was through him. So she just had this hatred for her husband. So we go on this girls trip. It's been 3 years since they've spoken, and I think it's driving, my ex-mother-in-law nuts. And so she's like, well, we're just going to do this, protection spell over her. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. Again, light energy, right? And we're in the middle of this spell, and it's being guided. We're sort of like in this trance state, and it's being guided by my ex-mother-in-law. And she's like, we're just going to lift her up, picture, and then it's surrounded in this light. And she keeps saying, and her husband, we'll call Nathan. Nathan's gone. He's just gone. He's just not in the picture. And she's happy, and the kids are happy, and he's just gone. And I remember it striking me. It seems weird, and it felt really uneasy to me. And I'm like, okay, but she didn't say anything bad. So I'm trying to it was eating at me. And mind you, we're on a girls trip, but we had taken a road trip to Deadwood.
You had discernment. So, you had discernment. Yeah. You were discerning that as like not good. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
So I've not seen, my ex-sister-in-law. It's been over 3 years. We had just done the spell. And we're coming back from Deadwood to Colorado at the time. And I'm driving. I'm just following the GPS navigation. And my mother-in-law's getting so annoyed. She's like, where are you going? I'm like, it's just taking me wherever it takes me. I don't know. I'm following the GPS. Like, shut up. And we're in the middle of nowhere, Wyoming. And there's like one gas station in 100 miles. There's like 2 houses in this town. We don't even know how we got there because it was off route. I was just following the GPS. And we're at this gas station. I go to the bathroom, and my Coven's sister, she's like kicking down the bathroom door, like, get out. You're not going to believe this. Get the F outside. And I'm the Riley bunch. So I'm thinking like, oh man, are we really getting kicked 86 out of a gas station? But it was my sister-in-law and her husband and all of the kids, like, on such a random event. None of us live in Wyoming. And how would we even get here? We ran into them. And it was this kind of awkward encounter because she was very standoffish. It was just a weird encounter. But we get back in the car, and my mother-in-law, she's just stone cold. Like, she just saw her grandkids and her daughter that she hasn't seen in 3 years. And she's just like, all right, let's go. And I'm freaking out. Like, what just happened? And so is my Coven sister. And I end up having to pull over a few miles down the road. Like, I can't believe that just happened. Like, I know this, like, it just seems weird. Nothing seems right about this. And it was like shortly after we got back home. It was like 2 days later, and my sister-in-law hadn't talked to me. She wouldn't. But she calls me out of the blue, and she's like, what did you guys do? What have you done? What did you do? And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. And she's like, yes, you do. What have you done? You almost killed him. And I'm like, what happened? Just tell me what happened. And she's like, he broke into a fever. He started having seizures. He's foaming at the mouth. I had to pray over him all night. Sorry, I get emotional because I'm like, I still carry like guilt from it,
You still feel guilty for that?
Yeah, like, I think it's hard for me. I feel guilty for that and like anyone during that time that I steered away from Christ, like not knowing what I'm doing, but like teaching people tarot cards and how to work with the spirits, like my friends who'd ask, but especially this incident, like we really almost killed this man, you know?
Well, she did. She did. You didn't even know what you were doing.
Yeah. That was like, that like, brought me right back to the lady on the wall where I'm like, I'm interacting with things that I can't control.
Yeah,
like they tell me I have power.
But you don't.
Yeah. Right.
That would
like
be
they
scary.
tell me they have power. It was terrifying. And what really stood out to me was, you know, my sister-in-law, she knew, like she has the gift of the Holy Spirit. She didn't ask me, like, like she wasn't like, did you do something? She was like, what did you do?
She knew. Yeah.
Yeah. And she knew to pray over him and she knew what she was battling. And I think that's a huge, you know, part because of what she had to experience. Like it made her, it makes you understand.
So was that when you, is that when you started to kind of decide that you wanted to find a way out of this, or did it go on for quite a bit longer after that?
So I started backing away from the coven a lot harder from that. And I think it really ticked off my mother-in-law because I think it was like a sense of like her losing some control over me too. And I started talking to God more, but I'm like kind of still under, I have these contracts with these dark spirits. So, you know, I thought Jesus is a great guy. You know, he's like he's a very gifted wisdom, like a Buddha, whatever. But I would just pray to God. I wouldn't really think too much or acknowledge too much about Jesus. And I'm still doing tarot cards and getting answers from angels but I'm backing off on like anything with the coven because I'm sort of seeing this darkness, about my mother-in-law at the time. So as this is happening, my abuse, and I, you know, had a daughter too, and that was really freaking me out. Like I knew that I started recognizing generational and they're going to bring her into the coven. And she was just so pure and sweet and innocent and also very gifted from a young age, like knew things. And under attack had the same night terrors I did. So I really started trying to be more protective of her, which was so stupid because I'm being protective by like smudging the house, you know?
Yeah.
But as I'm pulling away, the abuse and the addiction and alcoholism and
that's
like
from
every
your
form of
husband,
abuse,
right? Your husband?
From my husband, yeah.
Yeah.
Started getting really unbearable.
Because he could sense it.
I think he could sense it. I also think it was the first kind of mini pull away, taking a little power away from my mother-in-law. And I even think he sensed it. Like, we don't, like, it sounds weird. Like, we don't have as much control over her anymore. She's starting to, you know, try to figure things out. Because I really was, like, more open to God and curious. And I just wanted to be as far away from the dark stuff as possible. And I'm realizing, like, what I thought was light isn't light.
She's not. And so, well, she's masking those. She's masking those spells. That can happen. Remember, I told you about that Christian warlock I told you about. Like, there's some warlocks that can mask spells into prayers that they have you repeat after them. Like,
there's so much of that backtracking in music that's actually demonic spells. Like, I'm seriously, Jay-Z, Beyonce songs, Billie Eilish, like there's so much backtracking. When I started understanding the backtracking, because that's how the spells work. That's how you.
Yep.
We talked a little bit. It's very sneaky. It's very insidious. Just like
that's that voodoo god. That's the voodoo dark spirit Papa Legba. He's attached to the musical industry.
Oh my gosh, then that one terrifies me from astral projection and what I've seen. Like, voodoo scares me so much.
Yep. Well, you remember that Christian guy I told you about that kept calling. Said he was a Christian and he was calling God Papa all the time. He said, "I call God Papa." It's like, why? Like, I didn't think about it at the time, but I was like, why not just call him God? Like, why do you have to call him Papa? Well, the reason why is his God is Papa Legba, which is the voodoo god, who's the god over the musical industry, which is, let's be honest right now, that's the one that's becoming the most apparent right now. That's like, it's like they're not even trying to hide it anymore at this point.
No.
You know what I mean?
No.
So I know that's insane.
Yeah, Indy, in your opinion, I mean, I'm going to kind of touch base here on something. In your opinion, is there a difference between good and bad magic?
No, it's all bad. It's all bad. Satan disguises himself as light, as good. And so, the whole time I would never say I'm working with demons or I'm doing evil witchcraft. Like, I never in a million years would ever state that. Like, I wouldn't even do love spells because I felt like, you can't really infringe on someone's personal, free will. And so I always tried to be as careful and as cautious as possible. And you don't have control of that. When you're opening those doors, they're going to do what they want with you.
Okay. So whenever you're in, so the abuse starts to get real bad. How did you escape there? Tell me right at the tail end there, how did you escape, or when did you decide to escape? How did you do it? And walk me through that. Take me there in that moment.
Well, like, you have to imagine, just for time's sake, like the most horrific level of domestic violence that there can be, like sexual, physical, mental, emotional, all of it. And so, I ended up being like hospitalized. I almost died. And it was in that moment, like at this time, I'm still kind of like really turning to God, even though I wasn't like fully like going to church or thinking too much about Jesus himself. I'm calling out to God of the Bible, God of Abraham, well, he answers us, and I kept praying, like, would you save this? Like, you're not for divorce. And he kept telling me, no. And it was when I was in the hospital, I'm still praying. Like, I literally almost died. I'm still praying, like, I didn't want, my child to have a broken family. And, it was the firmest, like, he's been firm with me. He's had to be firm a lot, but he is like, no, I don't want this for you. And it was in that moment.
Hold on.
Where
God didn't want the divorce, or he didn't want you to stay in there?
He didn't want me to stay in it. He's like, this is not what I want for you.
Of course not, right? Of course not.
Yeah. He's like, he said, I am not in this. I'm not in this. Like, and it's weird because it's kind of like these downloads, like where it's, sometimes visual and sometimes information, but he visually, showed me, like, I'm creating this barrier, like where I'm preventing him from his ability to protect me and work in my life by what I'm doing, that he's trying to help.
Yeah. There's God's will and there's free will. There's God's will and there's free will, and they don't always match up, right?
Exactly. And so when I left after that moment, it was the middle of the night with just what we had, fleeing to a safe house pretty much. And going from there, it was one of those, like, I heard him, I was like, all right, God, I hear you loud and clear, but I don't know how to do this. I can't do this. Like, I can't do this without you. So, like, you have to be there. Like, you have to. And, like, show the way. I don't know the way. And he did. Like, it happened. Like, things just fell into place, like, where I felt the bravery. Like, I had the opportunity. And, like, when I knew it was we fled.
You say we?
And
you and your kid.
Me and my daughter. Yeah.
Okay.
So, I got us a townhome, made it clear to him, and he like couldn't deny it, but he's like, I want to know. And I was like, no, it's like, I'll set up where you can see her and do all of this, but you're never going to know where we live, period. And that lasted about a week where he tracked us down. And the stalking began, like, and the ongoing, it just got so much worse. And at this point, because I had, left her precious son and the coven, I'm getting so much demonic spiritual attack. Like fevers out of nowhere. My eyes literally swelled up like completely for like 3 days shut.
Wow.
And that's never happened to me. And it's like I knew, like the way my sister-in-law knew, like, what did you guys do? It's like there is no, it's you know what it is, you know. And I'm not saying everything is demonic. Like a flu is not demonic necessarily or witchcraft, but
because
when
of
you know.
because of your experience in it, you could distinguish the difference between medical and spiritual.
Yeah, absolutely. I just had like that higher discernment, you know.
Okay, so
and I wasn't like extreme.
So
everything's demonic, but
did you ever like turn him into the police or anything, like to this day, or?
Oh, he started breaking into my home, and it just got crazy. So again, God showed me he was the love bombing process, right? Of like, I'm gonna kill myself or come, just have our daughter not go to school today, and just remember how much we love mountain drive. Just go on a mountain drive. I want to go on a mountain drive with my girls. Just give me this one last thing. And that's when I heard another time, God, it was audible. It was so heavy. He's like, he's going to kill you. And I had the vision of him taking the car and driving off a cliff. And it was November, so it was snowing. And I got scared. I was like, no, I have a meeting and she has to. And he called later that day, like drunk as can be, and was like yelling and screaming at me, like, I just wanted to be with you guys, like hating on me. And I said, you were going to kill us. And he got really silent. And I was like, you were going to kill us. I was like, you were going to kill us. You were going to drive us off the mountain. And he got really silent. And then he just said, I need help. And that's when I was like, I can't, like, I have to protect her. And so I filed
protective order,
and for me and my child, which was granted on an emergency basis. And when he got served the notice, he called me and he was like, my job, I worked a lot in the court system as an advocate and stuff at this time. So I knew a lot of the magistrates and judges. But I didn't know the one who signed this emergency order for me at all. So he called me assuming that I did. And he was like, tell that B, I'm going to murder her and her children too. And I was like, I don't know who you're talking about. And he was like, shut the F up. Yes, you do. And he hangs up. And then he sends me a screenshot that when he got served the orders. And the person he was threatening was the judge. And so
you know you're dealing with an idiot whenever he gets served with a protection order and the first thing he does is call the person that he has a protective order. That's an idiot.
Yeah.
Like seriously.
Yeah. And threaten him and everything. So yeah, it was crazy. So at this point I
mean, did you turn him in for the violation of the VPO right then?
Yes. And I also had to do a pretext phone call. He got felony charges for threatening to murder the judge.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. But it was during the pretext phone call where law enforcement does a forensic dump on my phone to kind of get all the dirt on him, because I'm telling him like what happened, but I'm like, I think he'd kill me before the magistrate. Like because they're like, does he have access to weapons? Do you think he'd do this? And I'm like, look, he's unbalanced. Like he's an addict. He's homeless. He's all kinds of things, but he's going to kill me, I think, before he kill the judge, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm telling him like all of my fears and really discussing what's going on and the stalking, and they take a forensic dump on my phone. And it's when they do the forensic dump that they see me saying like, all right, so this is where the story gets dark, and I don't know how much time we have, but Angela inspired me. So I don't know if she's there, but I just want her to know.
Angela, what now?
Inspired me to really like go to this part of my testimony.
That's awesome.
Yeah, she's here.
Yeah, it's just something like, as a mother, I don't know. So they do a forensic dump on my phone. They see that he said, I love you. I said, you don't love me. You don't rape people who you love. And he said, I'm a monster. And the cops came back and they're like, look, we just did a dump on your phone and we saw this. Like, we want you to be safe. We want you to know we got you. You could press charges. And I was like, no, I won't talk about it. 'Cause I was like, I'm not going to have my little girl's story be, daddy went to prison for raping mommy. Like, I'm still thinking I'm protecting her, but I'm also terrified. Like, I know how these things go and proving it and all kinds of, like, I have no confidence in the system. Like, I'm not going to put myself through that. So I didn't. The stalking and everything kept getting worse. He did not care about protective orders or that he had a felony charges. He was on probation. Like, it was a joke. Like, he just didn't care. So he broke into my townhome one night. And that was like just at the point where I was like, I've been under an address confidentiality program, and I was like, I have to flee the state. Like, I have to literally leave the state to be like safe from this man. Like, I'm living on such survival at this point. So I get like a confidential address, a confidential name for this program, and I flee the state. I'm still working with the courts, and fighting for, he wants to see his child. They do order a visitation through the courts, and my daughter ends up like barricading herself in her bedroom, calling the cops on herself. Like, I'm going to kill myself if I have to see him. And I'm confused. I was like, I know she has a lot of anger towards her dad, but it seemed like such an extreme reaction. So she ends up getting hospitalized, and they tell me it's for suicidal and homicidal ideation. I was like, she's 10 years old. What are you talking? And she's the sweetest thing in the world. Like, what are you talking about? And they like tell me like she wants to kill her dad. And I never understood it. Like, you think it's your worst nightmare when you know how bad it is. And the signs is that you don't want it to happen to your kids. And
yeah,
she gets released, and I read the hospital records, and she disclosed to the hospital staff that she was abused by him too. And so that's like one of those things where when I had the opportunity to, like, it just brought me back to that moment where the cops were like, you can persecute him. And I thought I was protecting her by not persecuting with it, not realizing like how bad it was.
I kind of understand. I understand that a little bit by not like because from me being in the place of an officer and caring so much about my victims not my victims, but the victims that I'd be working cases for, and then be sitting across from the DA, from the table of the DA, and him being such a charlatan that he couldn't even look me in the eyes, and he'd be like, Zach, man, I don't think this girl's going to testify on the stand, so I just don't think there's much we can do. I think I'm just going to do time served and have to register as a sex offender. What do you think about that? Like, what do you mean she's not going to testify? We have a forensic interview. We have all this stuff. And, well, man, I'm just like, and it's like, I don't have faith in the system either. And then all you're going to do is put that girl through. I'm not saying that you shouldn't file you should, but like, I'm saying I identify with you. I get why somebody would be hesitant to, because the system doesn't care.
Yeah.
System doesn't really care about you anymore. Our justice system doesn't care about you anymore.
It doesn't. And the family system is truly no better, because it kind of like led up to all of this.
It sucks.
Like ordering it. Yeah.
It's true though.
And the hardest part was, like by this time, it was after I first left him. Like, by now, I actually had a amazing, she was my assistant at my job, and the most amazing, sweetest, like, lady. And she always joked, like, I could be your mother, but you can be my daughter. I just adore you. And she kept inviting me, to her church. And she really helped. Like, she brought that rope down for me. I was sort of like teetering on the edge, but she really, I think, like, bringing me back into her church. And like, she knew she was one of the safe places I had to run to at the time. And so all of that being said is that when all of this was happening, like the hospitalization with my daughter, I was fully like reading the Bible again, back with the Lord, But I hadn't thrown away my witchcraft stuff yet. I just stopped working with it.
Why is that normal? Like Kara from our group in our Bible study too. Like she hung on to her tarot cards for a little bit. Like, why is that?
I think it's like the same. I really do think it's kind of like the lies that the enemy whispers in your ear, that you're still kind of, you have that stronghold where, the same way people, it feels sentimental to you. Like, well, that's the one I got, and then that you want to just, I'm just keeping the memories, but I'm not getting rid of it, which is, I think, exactly the work of the enemy.
Yeah. So
human attachment.
Yeah. So, when you fully came out of, so what, like, where's your ex-husband now? Does he ever get to see the kids anymore? Where's the mother-in-law at? Like, where, let's tell me about now. Like, what's going on now?
From everything that she said, I don't think she has any contact with any of her family.
I just want to hear it from, See,
Now, the only contact we have is through the ongoing criminal process. So the most tragic thing, anything could happen. They didn't listen. They sent her back to stay with my coven mother and her dad for a visit. And I don't like talking about all of the details, but she is gone. And it was one of the last things he promised me was, if you don't come back to me, like, I will promise you your life will never be the same. Like, I will take everything from you. And so that is exactly what happened. It was 3 months after we got baptized together, back into, Christ, that I lost my daughter. And so I always think about that, like when people get so angry at God, and especially I think it was right after we got baptized together, and I was fully back. I was like, oh my God, I'm being obedient. Like, why is she gone? I didn't understand, and I never fell away after fully back. When people talk about being enrageful, if God was so good, I didn't get that angry, but I was yelling at him, I don't understand. You better explain it to me right now, right now. But what happened is, in witchcraft and everything, when I could connect to spirits, like snapping my fingers. But when I stopped doing that, and I know I used to be able to talk to God and hear him clearly as a child, that I'm like, okay, that'll happen again. But I didn't hear God at first. Even before I lost my daughter, I was kind of all right, God, maybe it's been a while. We'll dust this up, brush back up, get the phone going, connect it again, and I'll hear from you soon. And so I was being kind of patient, but after I lost her, I was like, you better tell me, tell me now. And he was talking back, but it seemed like a whisper, and I had trust issues of discerning the spirit, so I didn't know if it's him. I was like, you need to give me clarity. I need clarity. Is this you or is this something else? Because I know how to talk to other things. But it was I don't know. He was just telling me, I'm with you. I'm sorry. And I was like, no, it's not good enough.
Man.
But it was just a whisper. And I was like, yell it to me. Come down here now. Tell me. But, it was the funniest thing. He's I was stop being just a damn whisper. I was mad.
Yeah.
And he literally whispered back. He's when I'm whispering, I'm close.
When I'm whispering, I'm close. Wow.
Yeah.
So, is this the first time you've talked about this since it's happened?
Yeah. Yeah. I've never talked about this part of my testimony, and it's hard because currently he is incarcerated. There's an upcoming hearing end of June.
So he hasn't been convicted of this yet.
No, he's incarcerated for other crimes at the moment, and has a pending hearing that I'm set to testify at in June. And it's been years since I've seen him. There's been the protection order. I'm under confidentiality, but when, these, pretrial hearings or court things come up, I hear his voice. And in June, it'll be the first time having to see him. And of course, his incredibly enabling mother, who was my coven mother, who, and even now when we have like pretrial conference hearings, or when I written and submitted like a victim's impact statement letter, demonic activity happens at my house. Like I know, like God tells me, like, pray. You need to pray. Like it was interesting because we talked about birds and stuff. So this has been happening where I live. This shouldn't happen. But there's been an owl, and I don't hear it all the time, which means it doesn't have like a nest that's just close by. But when I hear the owl, I'm like, I need to pray. It's their monitoring spirit.
Yeah.
And I always think about my sister-in-law. I'm like, I should have listened to her. Like she was so right. And now people would judge me the way I judged her. Like, oh, get some meds, girl. But it's so real.
You tell me that you admire my obedience. I want to say something that I admire about you, because through both of our, because I've known Indy for months now, by the way. I don't know how long, but months. I admire, like, if you sat me and Indy, or if you got to know me and Indy separately, you would think by our actions that I have been through way more than Indy, because I'm a wuss, basically. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm just like screaming at God because he didn't make my truck payment. You know what I mean? And you wouldn't be able to tell that she's been through all this stuff. She's just she loves God. Like, how did you develop that after all you've been through? How did you keep from blaming God?
So I want to I love what you said, and I appreciate it. And I do hear people, like my family, who knows what has gone on and continues to, like, especially my dad. Larry, you talk about, you have to imagine my dad in this scenario, who's a cop and hates his man, and his, my daughter was the most precious thing in the world to him, like the first grandbaby. So I've never seen anything devastate him more. But I'm not strong. Like my biggest vice from like 7 years old was like, and even in college, like, I know the easy way out, I'm even yelling that at God, like, and this is what struck me is like, I'm obviously in this dark valley.
You're talking about suicide.
And I'm not,
suicide, right?
Yeah. Cause I was like, God, you say your yoke is light and easy, and you're for us, not against us, and this is happening. And like, he kept telling me, like, I'm here. And for the longest, like 8 months, like I am withering away and just lamenting. And he is like, I'm here, I'm sorry. Like, and I'm like, that's not good enough. And finally it was one day, I was definitely going to unalive myself, and I had the means to, and I'm in the closet, like, that's it. And I couldn't do it. Like I couldn't do it. And I was like, I don't know what you want from me. Like, I was so mad. And it was the other time he was really firm with me. He was like, little girl, get up. Like, it was like a command. And so it's like, I was still upset, but I'm like, fine, I'm up. I was like, now what? He was like, you write. And so
now
I started writing.
We know now why the recording didn't go through last time.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I'm like, it was afterwards where I was like, God was telling me, like, you held back.
I literally feel like I'm gonna throw.
Wow.
I literally feel like I'm gonna throw up. Honestly, like I just
I told you, like, that was a God thing. When it happened, I'm like, that was God. It wasn't a demonic, like, I don't want it out there. That was a God thing.
Do you still
like, do it right?
I think I have to agree with you.
Do you
Indy.
do you still think about unaliving yourself sometimes?
No, well, okay. So after this incident, this is what really hit me is I kept saying, like, God, you say you won't give us more than we can handle. I cannot handle this. I'm not strong. Like, I don't know how you think I am not strong. Like, I will do it. And he spoke to me. He's like, where you end, I begin. Like, stop, like, drop the rope, you know? And so that's what really hit me is like, I think it's a lie. I think there's a lot of lies that I think are just Christian phrases at this point, but it's not biblical to say like, God won't give you more than you can handle, because that's a lie. He will give you more than you can handle. So you understand that it's him, you know, it's not you.
Yeah.
You can't,
and that's what
he can't get you to a place of brokenness until he puts you in the wine press.
I remember our like, it seems like I didn't, I feel like I need to start taking everybody that talks to me more seriously now. Cause I remember our DMs together, like, I mean, a month ago, about where you were like God's breaking you right now. And he's waiting for you to do something. And you're like, trust me, God's broke me. And there's some pretty crazy stuff that's happened. And now it's like, I just didn't think it was this crazy, you know? And it's like, man.
Yeah.
But like, you know where she's at too. So like that's just crazy. These demonic people do. So they still, the coven mother, she still messes with you, and stuff like that. Does she, like, cause you mentioned astral projecting. Is astral projecting okay is it okay for Christians to astral project?
No, never. And that's the biggest thing that, when you realize, like I said, like God creates everybody like beautifully and with amazingly unique gifts. And there's a group, you know, is population of it's not everybody, but obviously there's a strong population of people who are very spiritually in tune and connected. And the reason I think that they are usually more often than not get attacked at such a young age is because, to keep you from God's kingdom and doing his glory, because in the occult, there's so much an ego in it, and you're like, oh, I can control this. Oh, look how cool I am. This is my power. And it's not your power. Everything is God's. That was God's gift to you that you're abusing. And so anyway, if you're trying to force like some sort of spiritual connection or spiritual, God will take you away to astral protect. He's astral projected me on his own. Like I haven't had to do anything, and that's like a vision from God. I think that's really what happened.
Happened to Peter, right? Happened to Peter too, right? Yeah. Yeah, like Peter when he was taken up to the seventh, and I can't remember. He was given the vision about the animals being clean, or whatever. Yeah,
right.
It's an astral realm.
Yeah,
God can do it, but like, you can't. Yeah,
right. It's like illegally gaining access into something, which it's always going to end up being negative. If you're doing it illegally outside of God's legal will and authority, you're open like. Satan's a legalist. He knows all of the laws of like heaven and the universe, and that's how he's like the great accuser. He knows laws that we're breaking. We don't know we're breaking. He's gonna make sure he holds it against us. So astral projecting, and that's why there's no white magic. Like there's no such thing. You're accessing something that's not meant for you. Period.
Okay.
If it's a gift from God, He will grant it.
Yep. Amen. I agree. Okay, so we're gonna do the rounds real quick. Start thinking if there's anything you missed. Start thinking about it because you'll get the closing thing. Okay.
Okay.
I sound like a blubbering idiot right there. I hope you understood what I meant. Okay. Do you have something to say?
Yeah.
Okay, Angela, go ahead.
Hey, Indy. I want to thank you for sharing, first of all, because I know it's hard, but I do have a couple of questions. I wanted to know, like, when you were younger and the abuse was happening, did you blame God for what was happening to you?
Not ever as a young child, not until I got to college. And I think it's because I do have a strong gift of discernment. And so I did know when I was able to disassociate away with the angels that they were sent from God directly, and that they were there to protect me and love me. And so I always knew acknowledgement that wasn't of God, and God was still with me.
Right. And then one more question. Have you forgiven yourself for the things that your ex has done and then him killing your daughter? Have you forgiven yourself for putting her in that situation?
This is like my biggest guilt. And I think it's why when I said you inspired me to tell that part of the story is like, I don't like talking about it.
I understand, but I want to tell you this, sis. It's really, really important for you to forgive yourself because it took me a really long time to forgive myself for the abuse that my ex-husband did to my children.
It actually, you just like what, about a year ago? Yeah. I remember, like, I could tell it still was a very, very heavy weight on her until, like, I don't know, like maybe, I remember when we started coming to church here, oh, you went down and prayed. Yeah. And you haven't felt it since then. We haven't even, that weight was lifted off of you, wasn't it? Yeah.
It takes a long time. Really long time. But I feel like it's very, very important for you to forgive yourself for your walk with God, because God doesn't want you to be in pain. And let me tell you, you pray to God to relieve you of that you forgive him, and then you just leave it in God's hands and he will take care of it.
Take it to the altar. She went down to the altar. And people prayed for her at the altar, really, and she left it there.
It took me many, many years, but you got to know that it's not your fault that happened. You can't control somebody else's actions because, at the same time, I thought that I would be able to tell because it was happening to me whenever I was a child, that if I would never let that happen to my kids because I would be able to tell. And whenever it did happen, man, that was tough. It was tough. So I'll be praying for you for that, sis.
I would love that because I do think, I can't say truly, like, I do feel that I've forgiven all of the abusers in my life and all the horrific things. Like, even, I don't know how I can forgive, my ex, and I still, like, the hardest hurdle is myself. And I think I only came to that place of forgiveness through praying for them, like I had mentioned, like God directs us to do. But I am my own enemy, and I don't think of praying for myself in that way. Like, because I think that's one of those things where the forgiveness that if I find that weight lifted, that's going to be all God, because I don't know how to forgive myself for that, Well,
it's taken me a long time. My oldest is 24, and she was 8. When I found out, she was 17. So, and she's 24 now. It has taken me that long to forgive him, and more or less to forgive myself. So you gotta be in prayer about it, and just tell God to give you the strength to do that, because it weighs heavy on you, and you just don't, like, what do I want to say? You're so much more beautiful, and you have and your spirit is so, I love your spirit about you. So I think that you will feel so much weight lifted off you, and you won't have that much pressure if you do just submit to God and, like, give it to him and just forgive. And it doesn't mean it doesn't mean that you forget the pain, like you forget it, but you forgive, and that weight is lifted off of you, and it's so much better.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm going to leave with that.
Awesome.
I'll be praying for you.
Okay, Larry, go ahead.
First, I want to say that condemnation is from Satan. Conviction comes from the Holy Spirit. And I believe that Satan is still trying to keep a hold on you with the condemnation. But I've been sitting here looking at this verse, and I know that I'm supposed to read it. Okay? It is I'm still in 1 John and chapter 2, verse 20. But you have an anointing from the Holy One, and all of you know the truth. That's highlighted in my Bible, and it just kept drawing my eye to it. And I know that has to come from God. An anointing that you have to share the turmoil that you have suffered in this life, and yet you still keep a positive outlook that God is in control, even when every fiber of your being doesn't want to admit that at all. I'm blown away by your testimony. I am so glad that we did actually have to come back and that you did take that opportunity to share that.
Thank you, God.
Because
Yeah.
with that confession to your brothers, Zach and myself and Angela and Larry are in here. And you've confessed that to us so that now it can be dealt with and it can be taken care of.
Yeah.
John 2:9, 1 John 2:9 says, anyone who claims to be in the light but hates his brother is still in the darkness, and whoever loves his brother lives in the light, and there is nothing in him to make him stumble. I believe you're in the light, sister.
I'll tell you this, man. Here's mine. This is what's bringing up in my head right now. It's because Indy's been in there every time I've thrown a fit whenever these men pastors and these haughty men come in and the discussion comes in about women being a part of some sort of ministry in a church. And I defend them, but this is why. These men that come in here and talk about how women shouldn't be in ministry and stuff like this, they've probably only had like a scratch on their BMW or something. Like they haven't had to go through this.
No.
Right? And I'm sorry, but if you don't think this woman's calling's great of what she's had to dig herself out of piles of ashes and she still comes out looking at like a rose, I'm sorry. Like, you don't have what it takes to be her.
I completely agree.
You don't have what it takes to step into her calling. Want to know why? You couldn't swing it. And you have the audacity to come into my Bible study and tell me that I'm wasting my time helping these women come into their calling. Like, get out of here, just to put it plainly. Does that make sense?
I can kind of agree with you right now.
Yeah. So anyway, just to say what I want to say to you though.
I'm just saying I'm honored, I'm privileged, and
amen.
That is so much strength. So much strength.
But anyway, so here's what I want to say to you though, just as a personal, like my stomach's turning from this. It's just insane. Here's what I'll say. If you ever need anything for me to reach out, just reach out privately. You have so many ways of getting hold of me now. Please just don't feel afraid to talk to me. I had no clue. I hope this helped as some sort of like therapy for you. I think it probably did. Helped you just kind of understand that you could talk about it and you don't have to be ashamed about it.
You're not alone.
That guy's a turd, man. And if anything ever happens to where something happens to where apocalypse happens and that jail cells happen to swing open and people get to fly out of these jail cells, I'm getting in the biggest bus and I'm loading up some of the biggest guys and I'm going to go pick that dude up and I'm going to do some very unchristian-like things to him.
Zach,
what?
I just read 1 John 2.
I don't hate him.
9.
In fact, we can be friends after I do what I do with him.
Listen, leave it to God.
I know.
Okay, just leave it to God.
I know.
It's hard. I understand that. Leave it to God.
It'd be fun for me, though, too. You see what I'm saying? It'd be like a stress reliever.
But you don't want to.
Well, this is where when I'm like wondering, like, is God going to have us part of this Armageddon? Because, like, give me my sword.
Yeah.
Like, I have some aggression that I can take, like, legally take out on some angels.
Yeah. I just don't. My stomach's literally turning. Like I just feel sick. Like the stuff that you've been through. That's all I can think of to say is that like you just the men that come into these Bible studies that try to quote these scriptures that say women can't do something great in the kingdom of God, they don't have what it takes to go through what you've been through. I don't know that I do. And it's just the calling that's placed on your life. I'm so excited to see what it is. I'm so excited that I get to see what it is. And I get to be a part of
we're
you.
actually part of it. Yeah.
You say you're excited to be a part of my ministry. I'm excited to be a part of yours. So thank you for that.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
And I love you.
Well, thank you. I love you guys. And this really was a God thing because, I mean, I was nervous. Just like I said, I've never talked about this. And truly, I've been living in confidentiality for the last 3 years. So talking about my story, period. I kept telling God, like, I know you'll make something of this. Like, you're the way maker. Nothing's more impossible than the situation that, in my opinion, it's like you work in impossibilities. And I don't fully know what my calling is, but truly, through the Bible study and this podcast, and like when I know God is truly working through this, and I see it, every time we meet, and even just clearly through this podcast, it was very clear that He was like, no, like you didn't you half-butted it. Like,
half butt.
get back on there and tell your story so I can do something with it. And I really have no idea. Like, I think there's a lot of us that are like, what is my calling? That we don't quite know yet, but I do trust that at the very least, like, I hope that this, through your podcast, which is why I'm excited to be a part of it.
Well, here's the message, right? It's like if you're going through something and blaming God, then it cannot be more than that. You know what I mean? It's like
that's why I have I'm asking God to work on my grace when we're in the lives and we're getting attacked. Like, if God's so good, why does He endorse slavery? And I feel like Peter, because I'm like, I need grace because I don't vocalize my story, and I don't feel higher than thou for it. But I'm kind of like, that's how the enemy works. He wants us to feel like victims. One thing that I just feel like this is on my heart to say, so if anything, last thing come up, I always thought it was weird when Jesus talks to like the man at the pool who, he wants to be healed, and he's been disabled like his whole life, and he's been waiting by this pool for years. And Jesus has the audacity, right, to ask him, do you want to be healed? And I'm like, why? That's rude. Like, why would you say that? Like, of course he does. But that's what he had to really say to me to pull me out of my darkness, was like, do you want to be healed? Like, because you just, like, at some point you can't keep using your trauma as a shield. And actually, like, kind of the exact words
some people subconsciously, I think it's subconscious.
Yeah.
But I think they get so comfortable in their sorrow, and they get so attached to their vices of this stress and guilt that they subconsciously, or maybe subconsciously, hang on to the trauma on purpose.
It's because they don't forgive themselves. I feel like once you forgive yourself, that weight's lifted, and then you can tell your story, and you can just be the person that God has called you in to be. It helps you so much when you forgive yourself or forgive that person. It makes it a lot clearer for you to understand.
It's been a really long time since I've seen you in shorts, and you've got some gigantic calves right now, dude. Like, don't ever kick me.
You just call her dude?
Yeah.
Yeah, I say dude to everybody.
Yeah, I know. That's
I say dude to
everybody. I want to say something, though.
Good grief, girl. Like, you've been working those things out, dude. You know what I mean?
I've heard it explained in this format, Indy, and I hope that this helps you on this. Jesus asked him if he wanted to be healed because think about the ramifications of him being healed. Now he has to go to work.
Mm-hmm.
His livelihood was brought to him. He was a beggar, because of his ailments. He was a beggar, so he didn't have to go work for his money, kind of thing. There you go. They brought it to him. He was fed this way. He was taken care of. He had people waiting on him one way or another.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Jesus asked him, do you want to be healed? Knowing the ramifications of that healing would change his whole life. Not just the healing part of it, but his whole lifestyle.
Yeah.
And that's why Jesus asked him.
that comes so full circle because that is exactly the words, like God literally said to me to pull me out of my, my highly suicidal depression stage. Like, how do I live after this? How? Like, she was my only reason for staying on this earth. And, how do I do this? And I told you guys how he kept saying, like, I'm sorry, I'm with you. And he was patient with me. And then finally, when he kind of revealed that to me, like, do you want sympathy or do you want respect? Little girl, get up. Like,
yeah.
He was giving me that sympathy. But at some point, if I was going to do the work of the Lord and be obedient, which, again, like you said, like, do you really want to get better? Because if I stayed a victim, I wouldn't be doing his work or really telling. I didn't necessarily want to tell my story, right? But God gave me that conviction and that in my heart to, like, if you want me to do something with your story, like, do you want sympathy or respect? Like, get up. So,
wow. Amen. Okay. Well, we are at.
I am inspired by you.
No, me too, dude. Like I
really am.
Like I literally from now on, whenever I'm like, God, why would you put me through this? I'm gonna just be like, it's gonna bring up Indy, and I'm gonna be like, that's not fair. Why can't I be upset about stuff?
You can expect that coming out of my mouth.
Oh, I know you will.
I'm just gonna say,
condescending old
Indy,
fart. I know you
Indy,
will.
All I'm gonna say is Indy. That's it,
dude. I'm gonna
know what it means.
I know because you're a condescending old fart. He's like, how can I make it to where I can beat Zach down whenever he's going through stuff?
So I can say it.
Man, condescending old fart.
It is difficult. Listen, I've been through things in my life, not anywhere near what you've been through.
Please don't go off on a 30-minute tangent.
I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not. But it's very difficult to sit here and watch you go through things and not be able to help, not be able to step in because God says, I'm teaching him something. Leave it alone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm teaching him something. Leave it alone.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And it's hard because, you're like one of my children now.
Yeah. I'm doing okay now. I've actually been able to, like, before I would get in good moods, right? I would get in good moods and then I would be able to string a couple of good days together. Well, now my mood's going like this, but my relationship with God's just, it's being the same. It's because I'm learning how to combat what Satan wants me, because everything, it all boils down to, whenever I get like that, it all boils down to a lack of gratitude. That's it. That's the root of everything, right? Is a lack of gratitude. Yeah. And that's it. And so I battle it with gratitude.
And you have to be thankful. Praise and thanksgiving in all circumstances.
Yeah. Like we could be upset. We could be upset, right? Oh, hold on. Before we even knew the reason of why we had to come back up here to shoot this episode again, we were grateful, right? We didn't know why. Angela was mad at herself because it was her mistake, right, that did it. But we said no, this thing's happened. And the fact that this happened only one time in 19 episodes is like, that's pro. That's pro. Like not many podcasts can say that. They've had to only reshoot one show in 19 episodes, And then I would say, well, let's just be grateful for this because, and it's like, and then we could blame it on Satan, right? But we're like, no, our God's great. If God wanted that episode to go through, it would have went through because that's how good our God is. And that's how powerful he is, There's a reason for this. Unless, you know what? We're grateful that we have a ministry that we're able to come up here. And thank God it was Indy.
Yeah.
If it was anybody else, we wouldn't have shot again. And then you come up here and she drops this on us and comes to find out that probably all that we recorded in the first episode, she probably first of all, we had no clue that there was more to that. But then we were able to talk through that episode a little faster because we wanted to get into the good stuff, and then we didn't know it was that, but Indy probably couldn't talk about that the first time because it was probably pretty scary for her, but because she had a test run, it probably gave her a little more, like she was able to probably sit the last couple of days and goes, man, I really wish I would have said this stuff.
I actually kept thinking of things I should have asked her.
Yeah.
And then now it's like, man, just give her a microphone and let her go.
Yeah.
Hey, first off, if you ever get a chance, come down here and visit us. Okay. That's first. Second,
I would love that.
Secondly,
come to the men's conference next year.
I really think that I think that your ministry should be speaking at women's conferences.
Oh yeah, there it is.
I really do.
Giving your
Traveling,
really do.
yeah.
I think that would be a powerful testimony.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that this year,
And I think God's working that.
Yeah.
You could write a book too.
I think that the things that you've said tonight in this podcast is, even though you don't think that it's reached people, but I feel like it's going to reach people and they're going to relate to it. I feel like more people are going to, because we are doing what we're doing, they're going to be like, wow, I need to speak out. I need to have the confidence like they are.
Amen.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we are at 2, so we got to get off here. Indy, any final words?
No, just that, like, I love you all so much, and the impact that you've had on my life. Like, I'm not connected to a church right now. So you guys have been like your Bible studies in the community and the prayers and the knowledge and togetherness. Like, it is truly amazing to see like God's hand in all of this. And I just cannot tell you all how much you mean to me and what an amazing family you are.
Amen.
Well, you mean the world to us too. Thank you
Yes,
for
we
being
love
there.
you.
Definitely.
Yeah.
This ministry is for you.
Yep.
You know, that's what it's about. And
Yep.
we do recognize that we are becoming an actual church.
Yep.
Yeah.
We really are. Yep.
Right before your eyes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's scary on my
I
end.
can't even deny it anymore. As like, if people want to call me their pastor, that's fine. But I told Shelby this morning, because he said a word, I can't remember what word he said, but I was like, isn't it funny that the guy that you call your pastor just had to Google a word you just put in a sentence? That's how dumb your pastor is.
It's like the humility, and that's kind of my ending statement, is like the occult and witchcraft. It's, we want our power back, and we kind of get this pride and our ego, and we want to feel special, but like the true, test the spirits, like the humility in people and the humility in you, like that's. I love it. It's really kind of what drew me.
Nothing's more brave than telling the truth.
Right.
Yes.
Which is why, Angela, I think you really inspired me. And I think I actually got God shaking his finger at me. And I'm like, okay, we'll do the right thing.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening. I love all of you.
Yep. Jesus loves you. So do I.
We are out.
I'll take you home.
Thank you so much for listening to the Help My Unbelief podcast. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And more importantly, tune in every Tuesday at 9 a.m. for new episodes.